Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday with the 10th episode of HeleCloud Talks Cloud with myself, Walter, and two guests. We have Ivelin. Funny story, he was actually part of HeleCloud this time last year. No, a year and a half
little bit
ago.
longer ago, yeah.
Yeah, well, time is a weird concept after 2020 happened, is it? And Gérard is a friend of Walter's, whom I tried to interrogate yesterday on the rehearsal, trying to find some dirt about Walter, but he only said Walter sometimes drinks too much, which is a good start to a sentence that finishes with dirt, like he drinks too much and is abusive to, for example, stewardesses or waitresses. But yeah,
I'll
it
not
didn't.
finish it right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So, welcome. 10 episodes. That seems like we should have had a cake or something for this, but
I have a bottle of whiskey because it's my husband's studio, and he pours it into his coffee mug on the all hands meetings, and it's like.
He has to remember to blow on it, so people think it's hot tea.
Oh yes, I'll tell him that.
Anyway, we sort of come together. Hi, Evelyn. It's nice to see you. I think it's been quite a while since we last spoke, but yeah, I really enjoyed speaking to you back when Olendeta was joining HeleCloud, and then I was really sad to see you leave, because basically you left either as we joined or right around that time. So I'm happy to see you here today. We have 5 different stories that we want to go through today. The first is a really generic one that is just a story about overcoming cloud migration strategies. Obviously, at HeleCloud, we deal with cloud migrations quite a bit, and I know that Gérard has also been involved in more than he probably cares to remember. And so these things, in my opinion, almost always boil down to exactly the same problems. And Gérard, you said it really nicely yesterday. It's either not enough focus on the actual work and too much focus on the process, or what was the other thing you said?
The opposite.
Oh. Now I don't remember.
But from my perspective, it's usually culture that bites companies when they are trying to do a cloud migration, because while if you're not aware, it seems like a simple technology switch. It's actually quite the major impact on how the business deals with technology. And if you apply data center thinking to a cloud environment, then you're going to be quite disappointed and on the wrong path, I believe. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Evelyn?
So many topics. So let's try to deal them one by one. On the first one, maybe I can elaborate a little bit more, like where is my standing. With HeleCloud, we were mostly doing AWS landing zones and security, extra security measures, securing accounts, also dealing with large deployments or migrations. With my current role, I'm currently inside VMware, inside professional services team of VMware. We're dealing with exactly, the funniest story is we're dealing with exactly the same set of customers. The logos, the names are exactly the same, but we're on the other side of the fence, where we're currently mostly upgrading, utilizing the existing VMware-based compute network storage infrastructure to accommodate it to the new realities of multi-cloud. So I'm doing exactly the same job. The technology stack is a little bit different, but I can see the perspective of the same customer looking from what about cloud native, what about cloud first, what about mass cloud migration perspective, and exactly the same customer looking from what about my legacy, how I can become future driven, how with minimal investments I can actually become adequate to the new realities. So
Interesting.
if you would like, I can double click inside the topic, but my saying is it's not a single-sided coin, and it is actually companies currently lacking maybe a little bit of more exact vision of the outcome, and I would agree with you on that, rather than the process. So how we do cloud migration center. Ooh, sounds fancy. But actually what you're trying to achieve, are you sunsetting half of your data centers or not? Because if you're not, you don't need the cloud migration center.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I think that what I see is that quite a few of these cloud migrations are stories without an end. So we are migrating to the cloud, and it's going to happen over the next 2 to 4 years, which is really difficult for an organization to wrap their minds around, because 2 to 4 years is a long time, and that just creates too much space to kind of grow towards something and not really move the needle.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is another funny fact around that is that the tool chain to do mass migration is almost immature anywhere you go and look into. There are customers that are having literally millions of workloads, Approximately VMware-based customers have around 70 plus million of workloads. That needs to move, obviously. It's not a human effort. And yet we don't have such maturity. We have mature frameworks, mature processes, mature recommendations, best practices, but not the tool chain to actually execute the point. And some of the biggest ones are simply waiting for the point of time where they have a next kind of a wizard to migrate to the cloud. And maybe
Yeah,
not so many
like you
appreciate that there won't be such thing.
Yeah, like you get a new Mac and you can just next finish transfer your old Mac to the new one.
Sometimes it look like from the car you move to the space shuttle and you are still asking where's the clutch.
Yeah, it is a really great shift in the way you think. I underestimated it at first when I joined HeleCloud. I was like, data center cloud, how different could it be? And boy, was I in for a surprise. People took a really long time to adjust to the reality of how abstract everything is in the cloud. And if you have to plan something that will finish in 2 years' time and have that abstraction and complexity in front of you, then no wonder you don't have a very concrete vision.
Yeah, and by the way, one funny thing on my side of the spectrum is that I was in a sense thinking that like VMware is the legacy and AWS is the future. And this is still living in some people's heads, where the reality is really funny. It is always a data center. It is always a data center. It's always compute network and storage, physical security, electricity, cooling, and a castle to build inside a mountain. So the difference is into the selling model. Honestly, it is the only thing that differs. How you sell your SREs? Do they call them DevOps? Do they call site reliability engineers or infrastructure engineers? How you sell your services? Would you sit on OpenStack, on OpenShift, on managed services, etc.? But it is the same story we are all telling with different fancy terms. And the reality is the challenge is exactly the same. Solid strategy and solid vision with a short-term budget, because usually you budget for 1 year ahead in an IT company, even a big one. Sometimes you just have the vision for 3 years, but you budget for 1 year. And usually you are so big that 1 year is not sufficient enough that you do it on one go. And in reality, in my thinking, it's more like budgeting, project planning, program planning, vision, strategy, and execution, and a little bit of missing tool chain as well.
Gérard, what are your experiences? I know you've been in more than a few different places.
Yeah. So what I found that really works well is to just get going. So as Amazon puts it, bias for action. So and then so it's really good to have some sort of structure and guidance in place, as in what kind of transfers can you do from a complete rebuild of your application landscape to trying to lift and shift it into the cloud. So those guidelines are good, but what's better is to actually just pick an application and migrate it to the cloud, and don't try to have complete plannings in place, but just start.
Yeah, it's an incremental process. I see that as well. I think that both are good because you need executive buy-in and all of those things. But at the same time, the places that are having the most trouble are the ones that end up eternally talking about how they're going to do things without actually doing things. And so bias for action, I also have a very strong preference for just trying it out, and then you can always course correct, and course correcting while you're doing things in parallel.
It's called agile.
Yeah, exactly. In parallel with a larger program definition is definitely going to move the needle, because you want to kind of show progress instead of spend 3 months talking about things and then still not have anything done.
Yeah. And Gérard, I would agree, but there is also another thing. Going into the cloud and just checking things up, moving maybe 10, 20, 100 workloads, that is the first stage where you just have to bite it. Just literally go do it. No excuses, don't ask even for permission. You can later ask for the excuse about doing it, but just go and do it. And then it feels like going to Bali. Oh, it's so the weather, the climate is cool, the people are very cool, and those tequilas and everything's just fine. And then you start thinking, maybe I should move to Bali. And here is where
Yes.
you're planning. So now you need to put the other couple of millions of workloads. But then
Usually the permission is there, right? Usually the permission is there. It's the CIO, the CEO, the CTO that are already said we should move our data centers to the cloud. It's just all the layers below it that want to do more planning and have more structure in place before they start going.
Yes. I think especially in organizations with multiple levels of management, the more levels of management you have, the more difficult it is, because people have different perspectives and different ideas. But it is 9:13 and we've just finished one topic, and I can talk for hours on cloud migrations, and entire conferences have been had about this topic. So I hope it makes people think a little bit. The next topic is silly but interesting. There was an article I ran into that compares the global infrastructures of AWS, GCP, and Azure. And obviously, this has a super high risk of comparing apples and oranges, because it's a difficult thing. Actually, they are apples and oranges, and to compare them is really difficult. But at the same time, it's also interesting to see that purely from a global presence, there isn't that much difference at the moment. That's my takeaway from reading this article.
I didn't understand one part of it, where they were comparing Direct Connect versus the same thing in GCP and Azure, and it was numerical, like 75 to 125, and I was like, 75 what? Like,
I think it's locations in which you can have direct connect.
Direct Connect, is it?
Yeah. But I think Gérard, you said yesterday you have some more experience with Azure, so maybe you can talk a little bit about how you see it from that angle.
Well, the main conclusion is what you already said. It's apples and oranges. What one company calls a region is not quite the same as what another company calls a region, and the same for an availability zone. An availability zone, I know in AWS speak, is that all the major connects are separated, right? So they have independent internet connections, independent power delivery, and geographical displacement. And so even an event like a flooding would maybe affect one availability zone, but not the other. And they're still close together, so you can do things like have databases running in synchronous mode. And it's not always true of other providers that it's completely separated. They might share some of the connections. So you might want to go multi-region in one provider where multi-availability zone could be good enough in another provider. So you just have to check it out, what means what.
So I'm obviously living in an AWS bubble here, but so does Azure use the term availability zone as well, or do they use a different?
I'm actually not sure. I think they do.
It wasn't the article, because they were first comparing regions and then availability zone. So one would assume that every cloud provider has the term, but you're right. It may be just an assumption.
Guys, look it from another perspective. They, by them I mean like the hyperscalers, they would replicate the telco world. Wave number one is comparing the number of sites, locations, regions, availability zones, whatever we call them, edges, etc. Wave number two is they eventually cover like the whole map and overlap like the telcos. And then we start competing on the service, on the features, on the number of managed service, on the quality, on the versions even. What version Elastic I can get in AWS? In Azure I have one minor release higher. And eventually that would equalize. And the third wave of comparison would be the most logical. What is the price? So if you have to give a speculation for the 5 years of hyperscalers, they would go in three ways of who is the bigger, who is the bigger, eventually giving almost identical service almost all around the world. And it would be small flavors, because right now we don't really know why we picked the telecommunication provider we picked. They're pretty much the same main.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that, but at the same time, yes, you're right. But it should be the price of running a workload, not the price of running a virtual machine. Because I see too often, I see them trying to compare the price of block storage or whatever. But really, what you want to compare is, hey, I have this I don't know, this application workload. How much does it cost me to run that for 3 months on Azure, and how much does it cost me for 3 months to run it on Google Cloud or on AWS?
Because cost management now, recent years, becomes easier topic to discuss in the IT world. We have cost management tools finally since the recent few years, and the cloud adoption really helps into kind of having all of those tools. I believe it would be the literally total cost of IT ownership.
Yeah, so the amount of effort as well.
Yeah. We'll go back to the times where the business would look at the IT as a separate unit. That is my prediction. It's a very strong prediction, but now every business is an IT business, and really the people that are doing retail, general ledger, and securities in a bank would stop talking about IT so much, and they'll just ask, okay, where should I put my workloads?
It's nice that you mentioned the telecom providers, because the model there indeed is that they go to their bigger customers and they say, yes, what we provide is a utility. You can go to any of our competitors and you will get pretty much the same service. So, and then they ask their customers, so what else can we do for you? What would be a good model for you to work with? And you see that a little bit with the cloud providers as well, that they have customer account managers, technical account managers. They go to their customers. So the price list is the price list. We can get you a discount, but what else can we do for you? And that's where the difference now is being made.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and we see that at least from my perspective, I see that where I've seen it with really large customers, I see that Microsoft has a tendency to send in a number of salespeople to try and make connections and make bigger projects.
What they've been doing for 30 years, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And AWS has a tendency to send in technical people and completely forget about the commercial aspect, which is really great for technical people. But then it does lead to the fact that Microsoft is pulling ahead because they are really good at having these sales conversations. At the same time, and I guess we'll skip to one of the other topics we have on the
yes, the apology.
on the
Yeah.
list.
And Walter, let me just finish off. And the fourth wave would be frustrated customers would go away for the lack or poor quality of managed service into the cloud.
Well, so the bridge I was going to make is to actually the last article that's on our list, which is a post by Corey Quinn on last week in AWS, which kind of surprised me, but it's really quite interesting. So he talks about Microsoft has done an excellent job of creating a developer experience that is second to none at the moment. So you build your stuff in Visual Studio Code, which I think is one of the most popular editors at the moment. Then you deploy it. You push it to GitHub. From there, with GitHub Actions, you can deploy it. And because Microsoft owns GitHub, that integration is getting stronger and stronger. So the developer experience is really great. However, at the same time, the part that comes, the part that comes afterwards, like you still need to run this stuff.
Running production,
yeah,
making money.
Which is something I think we've all seen. That there's a lot of thought about how to get to day zero, and then day one happens, and you're like, right, also still need to run this stuff. But I really liked that particular blog. I've posted the link in the comments also, where he dives into how well Microsoft is executing on that first stage of the journey, and I think that's really quite an important part of the journey that AWS isn't focusing on at all. You want to bring up a simple web application in AWS. You're going to have to go through a relative nightmare of different services that you first need to learn about that you don't really want to learn about. I just want to run a workload. Let's skip all the networking and thinking about the IP ranges and all of the stuff that will bite you later if you don't do it in advance. And that's different experience.
Yeah, and there's the other way around as well, right? So I'm definitely from an operations background or running production or it used to be called sysadmining. Nowadays it's called DevOps. But yeah, then you see a lot of the frameworks and the applications that get you up and running quick, and then indeed, what happens afterward, and then elementary stuff like how do you make a backup? High availability? How do you know if your service is still running or not? How do you alert somebody about it? All that stuff is important too.
Yep. Absolutely.
And they're important too. It's usually the part that makes the company money.
My way of thinking is we had those compartments before. We have the network security engineers, we have the risk and compliance managers, we had the developers, the quality engineers. Quality engineers gradually moved towards the developers, kind of a mixed in an agile team. Then we had the data scientists, which we previously called mathematicians, statisticians. Now it's fancy to be called the data scientists. They've moved and kind of joined the ecosystem and mingle. The DevOps movement actually makes system engineers not only do bashing and PowerShelling anymore, but learn a little bit of object-oriented development and kind of join the forces a little bit, especially function as a service makes them developers per se. and they actually mix together. But developers now to learn about, oh, what is a subnetwork? What is a routing table? Interesting. Maybe I can use that. And my thinking is we will all, and by we I mean all of those different functions, will be amalgamation into the future where you have to understand a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it would be different to tell which cloud would win. I'll tell you why, because the people that really, the companies that focus a lot around software development, really, that is the king, would maybe pick Asia, especially if they're on the .NET stack, obviously. But the companies that are actually having a lot of faith into the departments that do system engineering, network engineering, infrastructure engineering, and workload management, and all of those ability things, they will rather pick AWS because they have all the tools and all the control there, so they're in full control what is going on. And in my way of thinking, it would be eventually the subculture of the company matching the culture of the hyperscaler to match together.
But there is definitely a change going on. It's not just the companies you do business with, as in that you change from Dell to AWS or Azure. But it is the abstraction level is being raised. Whereas before you had engineers in your company that needed to know about frame size and firmware versions, etc. That's now gone, right? I'm very happy that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or your SCSI drivers or whatever. It's already there in the providers. And of course, you have all the higher level services like indeed functions, lambdas, and other services that you just can start putting your applications together. And that's where everything will be headed. The reason you can still get empty VMs, as it were, or even bare metal machines in the cloud, it's for the older workloads, right? Or you're really, really, really specialized and you cannot do it in one of the higher level services. But 99% of companies' workloads will go to those higher level services.
Yeah, we talked about it last week a little bit as well, and with respect to this fire in OVH, and how the last time I thought about where in a physical rack my server is located is a long time ago, and I would very much prefer to keep that kind of need for knowledge out of my head. We are about to reach the 9:30 mark, so I wanted to quickly touch on one more article, and that is actually an update on the OVH fire. And one of the things that we talked about is that I'm really quite impressed with the level of transparency and involvement that OVH has been displaying on this specific instance. So I posted the link to the latest updates, where every day they're posting updates on where they are at publicly, and this is quite, from my perspective at least, it makes the company look really good to be transparent about something that is so impactful to so many people. And even the founder of OVH is tweeting about it and is posting videos about what's happening there. And for me, that speaks very highly to a company's reputation to be that transparent.
And it is an obvious thing. I mean, you can't hide it anymore. I mean,
well,
you can't.
You can. There's still plenty of companies that work in try not to speak try to speak as little as possible.
Yeah, but
nothing to see here. Please move along.
Still not about the root cause.
No.
I mean, they have we found two theories yesterday when we had the rehearsal. One is a faulty UPS drive, and the other one was cabling maintenance that went wrong. But no one's saying anything, and you could just switch the focus to the future. Here's how we're restoring everything, as opposed to the past of how did this happen in the first place.
Which is a healthy strategy, because whatever happened, now you need to restore. Yeah. You have the months later to analyze and improve and do the lessons learned. Now then they need really to back online 100%. So I understand the guys. So, but what I mean by you can't hide it anymore, I mean literally, can't you? It takes an onion browser to find out what is going on. So there isn't really a place you can go and live for years without telling what is going on. Everybody is affected. Everybody is curious. Somebody would find out.
Oh yeah, I read that some hackers were affected as well. So poor little things. Yeah. So unfortunate.
Yeah, some command and control servers were gone as well. Yes.
But just last comment before we close up. The article really lists something like we are committed to providing nearly 15,000 new servers to our customers. Like that level of detail, there's no need for them to mention it in that detail. Even saying we're committed to providing new servers to our affected customers in the new next weeks is a statement you can make. So adding that level of detail with quantities is actually for me a really nice thing. But we're over 9:30, so it's time to close up. Both of you are welcome to have a closing statement or something you want to share with our
promote
viewers.
your agendas.
Promote your agendas. So Ivelin, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, we are living into the age of Buzz Lightyear, so it is simply to the infinity and beyond. We just have to push further.
Cool. Gérard?
Yeah, so in addition to the OVH story, that it's still a world of two IT worlds. There's the one where we know about stuff like disaster recovery planning and how to do IT to a really high level, and then there is IT that I have a VM. I read some how-tos. I got it working, and now I'm running my business on it. And there's still a lot of education to be done and learning on all sides of IT.
Absolutely, it's a journey, and I think for us here we're probably on the more experienced end of the spectrum. But it's good to keep in mind that there are people newly joining IT who have no idea about DevOps simply because they haven't been around for the last decade, and that's absolutely a thing that we need to keep in mind and teach people all the things that are so standard and normal for us, for all of us.
And for us to realize that what we learned 10 or 20 years ago might not be true today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which final was for me, the two most successful hires we've made are people who have done nothing in the IT world before we hired them. Ivo, Vasco, you're the best. Keep going. It's a lot better to give this opportunity to someone who hasn't worked in IT and see their motivation and hunger for knowledge drive them to major achievements. So yeah, do that, people. Don't just hire from big corporations.
Yes.
The landscape is changing. We go now to interviews where we interview developers who are clueless of assembly language. Let me speculate that in 3 years we'll go on a DevOps interview and there would be people coming who haven't really seen a switch. So let me do the prediction.
That's definitely already happening.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Happy Friday, and I hope you enjoyed the show. We did a lot. Thank you, Ivelin and Gérard, for making it happen. Bye guys.
Bye-bye.